Hello. So once again, another random and spontaneous video. Talking about what is already the case. And that there seems to be a mystery or a paradox that what is does not include you, or the story, or any characters. So this immediacy that's here before all concepts, ideas, imagination, does not have any stories or characters. You know, that's already the case. It's always been that way. But there does seem to be an illusion that's layered on top of what is already the case. And the illusion that seems to be apparently layered on top of this immediacy, well, first of all, there seems to be a very persistent, and it can feel so real, the illusion of time. But if you look, you know, right now, what's already the case, there is no time here other than an imagination, a thought, an idea. And then another thought gets laid on top of that believes that time is real. And then, of course, there's the thoughts and the belief that you exist as that character that you've been told that you are, or what you've believed that you are, and that you were born and you've got a story of a past that led up to this moment here, and that there's going to be a future tomorrow. Now, all of that is an illusion. It's a thought-based narrative, a belief, a thought that's arising now in this immediacy. Now, nobody knows what this is. You're not going to find out. No one's ever found out. No one will ever find out what this is. Nobody knows what this is because there isn't anyone here. That's the illusion. the me character, you, me, them, others, they're not already, they've never been there. And I know it can sound crazy, and sometimes I wonder why these videos are happening. But then there's it's obvious that there's no one making this video. And when I say it's obvious, I shouldn't use that word because it's clearly not obvious to people. I think you just either, this message that's being shared, people call it non-duality. I think it's just either seen by no one or never seen by the imagined characters. So I think I want to say it's important to mention that just because the illusion's being seen through, there's no denial of the story of the past, which can only appear now as a thought. There is no past. There's only this immediacy. However, there's a very persistent, and it feels so real, the illusion of the past, that you can't actually get rid of that illusion. You know, that can be a disappointment or a good thing, depending on the story. You can't get rid of it because it was never there. Now, relatively, it was, and this is why it gets so difficult to talk about, and to the point where, you know, I could be ridiculed for this message, and it's okay. You know, I don't mind that. I don't mind what happens at all. And it's really hard to explain. So forgive me. I do try my best in the videos to explain what's being shared, and there's many other speakers that attempt the impossible, really. I don't know why it's happening here, but there's an attempt to talk about, let's call it a no self-realization or awakening, liberation, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. So there's a presence that's here. So that feeling that you exist, like people call it consciousness, awareness, aliveness, energy, life or existence. Nobody knows what this is. So all them words are not this. Because this just is. It stands alone. It's always been, it will always be, it's eternal, It never started. Nobody created it. It's not going to die. And you might say, well, how do you know? How do you know all that? It can just, I can't even, it's just undeniable when it's been seen. There's been glimpses here in the past that's helped this realization. I'm not saying that's a rule that has to happen for this to be seen clearly. But in the story, it just seemed to have happened here, and it seemed to have helped see this for what it is. And it becomes obvious. So that existence, that feeling that you exist, try to imagine not being. So that this beingness, that's not this. I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about the Imagine Me character or the body. Obviously, the body's going to die and rot away. The Imagine Me character is just nothing. It's not even there. It's just a belief, a thought that arises now that you believe in. I'm just talking about that sense of beingness that's never left. It's always is. And that sense of beingness, you cannot imagine it not being, because that's an impossibility. And you could say that this beingness is what you are. You're not that imagined character because there isn't an imagined character. Well, there is and there isn't. That's what I mean. It's a paradox. So I'm not denying the relative world. But it can just be seen through. This beingness, that sense of existence, does not change. It's completely still. It does not move. It's completely silence. Yet there seems to be, let's call it a movie, a film, a show, a content that's being played out. But all of that just appears on the stillness, on the silence, which is the relative world. So the relative world is the story and the imagined characters, the colours, the shapes, the sounds, the smells, the tastes, the sensory experience, which includes thoughts and feelings. But what I'm pointing to is something that is here prior to all of that. That's what doesn't change. That's the sense of existence that you are. And if this is seen clearly, it doesn't mean that your life's going to become better. There's no one inside your body. There's no me character in your body. So it's never been there. So in your imagined story of all the things that's happened in the past. You've never done any of them things. So, and it's a bit of a joke this, whether this message is seen clearly or not doesn't really make a difference. Because the body's going to continue moving by itself as it always has. But there can become a relaxation and a relief when that's I want to say accepted, but there's no one to accept that either. It's just there's a recognition that whatever arises, whatever content appears on the unmoved, whatever relativity arises on the absolute, is okay. Even if it's uncomfortable. Because it's just seen that there is no time and there's no one here, and it's impossible for this timeless immediacy to be any other version of it. Where would that be? And it's just another thought. So this message is it's not exciting for the me character in any way. There's nothing on offer for the me character here in this. So this what is that is already the case does not house any me characters. Just like the body doesn't house a me character. So that's why you might have heard, you may or may not have heard, but a lot of people say, well, it's boring. The ordinariness, wouldn't that create boredom? But the thing is, when you identify with the me character and you're chasing the next high, chasing the next thing, material thing, money, love, whatever it is, that's not actually happening anyway. It's an illusory thought process that's happening now in this immediacy. That's the joke. That's why the illusion can feel so real. You actually think that you can get something, you can become something. I mean, apologies if that's a disappointment or a bit of a blow, but it's just as it is. I don't claim to know anything. I'm just pointing to what is. And if you just look right now, what is happening? There's no time. The past and the future are completely a mental construct. They do not exist. Only this appearance exists. There's nothing else. I would, I forgive me, there's no arrogance here or specialness. I've just said I don't claim to know anything. However, I would go as far as to say there's an addiction in society of becoming. And I don't want to say there's anything right or wrong with it, because again, there's no me characters housed in any of these body-mind organisms. It's just what's happening through conditioning. But there seems to be an addiction to wanting or becoming. And I don't think there's anything, as I said, right or wrong with that. But it can just be seen that it's an illusion. How many times have you wanted something and you don't get it, or you don't want something and you get it? There's no control. If you believe you're in control, that's suffering. Because you're not actually in control of anything. And you're always going to end up suffering or becoming disappointed, or becoming joyous of an outcome, because you've got no idea what the outcome's going to be, because there is no future. The future is an impossibility. It's never arrived. It can never arrive. There's only ever this timeless immediacy. So the addiction to becoming, or there being a future or a next to come, well, it's thought-based belief, I guess. It's an impossibility. I think that's why, as well, so many people have had glimpses or awakenings. And I mean, you might relate to this. So if somebody has this, there's been quite a few awakenings and glimpses here. Some of them have been terrible. Some of them have been quite scary and frightening, really, because when you realise you're completely alone, there's no one here, there's only this still and silent immediacy. After believing for decades that you are this individual person with all these characters around you and the stories of the past and plans for the future and hopes and aspirations, when that's all taken away from you, it's devastating. But there are glimpses that are absolutely wonderful. Like pure unconditional love for everything, seeing that everything is oneness, the same. Excuse me. And I think if somebody's had one of these glimpses where it's a blissful moment for, I mean, again, there's no time. You know, people report having glimpses for a fraction of a second, others for several weeks. But my point is if you've had a glimpse of unconditional love and you then fall back into identification with the me character and the suffering and the story, then that seems to cause a lot of suffering. But there's no one that's doing anything. There's no doer. You know, you didn't choose to have a glimpse. You can't choose to go back to believing in the character and the story. It just appears. So the me character, the thought of a me character just randomly and spontaneously appears. Memories of the past, they're just totally random and spontaneous. You could just be walking to the shop and then all of a sudden there's a memory that just pops up when you was an 11-year-old girl or boy. Something completely, it's got nothing to do with this immediacy of what's going on. That's what I mean. The thoughts, you've got no control over them at all, but you think you do. And it's really arrogant of the me character. And again, there's nothing right or wrong with that, but it's really arrogant to believe that you've got control of your thoughts or feelings or control. I mean, you've only got to look at the functions of the body, breathing and blinking of the eyes, coughing and sneezing, blood pumping around the body. There's no one doing anything, and that includes your thoughts and feelings. It's absolute fact. You know, if you believe that you can choose your next thought, I mean, how could you? You know, the thought arises, and then after that thought arises, another thought says, I chose that initial thought, but that's just a thought believing in a thought. But in this immediacy that's right here, that's already the case, there's no thoughts here. They're all, it's completely illusory. Your whole past and your imagined story of when you were born and things you've done in the past, it's all an illusion. And it can, I don't know why it's happened here, it just seems to happen in it seems to be few people, but it can just be seen as a ridiculously obvious. Now, if that is seen, that's not to say that, I mean, it happens here. You know, there could be times during the day where shit happens here, or, you know, memories pop up of my past, worries about shit that's going to happen tomorrow or what's going to happen next week. So that's what I'm saying. You have no control of when the thoughts of the me character arrive, or if you choose, you can't choose, but if believing in the me character, the thought of the me character is believed or not, there's no control over that. That's why I say there's no teaching or advice. But, you know, there's so many spirituality books and channels teaching how to master yourself, but there is no self. There's you can't do shit. Honestly, that's been seen now, that there's no one doing anything. It's a joke. But it's freedom as well. Everyone's equal. Everyone's this. Everyone's the same isness, this unknown existence. No one's to blame for anything. You've never done anything wrong. No one's done anything wrong to you. No one's ever achieved anything. Nobody's failed. Now, it can look a certain way in the relative world, and again, the illusion, the stories, it's amazing how this unknown aliveness, this consciousness can pull off this incredible masterpiece of a world and the countries and the billions of people and trillions of stories and memories, and it's just, it's breathtaking. And to think that that imagined me character has got any control over this. The me character's belief in the thoughts that arise is late. It's always just, so something happens, then immediately after a thought will say that I did that, or this is happening to me. Me. It's all about me. All people are bothered about is themselves and people closest to them, because that's, again, protecting or looking after themselves. And I'm not saying there's anything right or wrong with this, by the way. It's just what's appearing to happen. I think it's wonderful. I think it's amazing how there's all these billions of characters that think they're in control. Really believe they have a precious life. They will do anything to hold on to what they have. And I think that's why this message is so unpopular, ridiculed, and why so few people wake up to this reality of what is the case already, because they would be scared to lose everything. But the paradox and the weird thing is, even if you do see this realization, the appearances in the relative world still show up. And this is the paradox. So the me character dies. The story, the characters are seen through as complete emptiness. Yet it all still appears for you. And that's when it can become a bit disorientating. I mean, it happened here, for months I went through a really difficult and uncomfortable time with this, because and that's why so many people mention that it borders on nihilism, because there can be a dark seeing to this, as well as an absolute pure, wonderful, unconditional love. Because ultimately what's being seen here is the death of the me character. I mean, it's pretty much, and this is what I mean, it does and it doesn't die. I mean, you might have heard of ego death. That's what's being shared here in a way. So the ego character has been seen through. It's not there. It never was. It's never been there. But you still can't stop the thoughts of the me character arriving, or you can't choose whether to believe in the thoughts of the me character or not, or its stories, or other people's stories. It's just a continuation of the illusion that seems to carry on. As I said, there's an apparent dream, a thought-based reality, a matrix, if you like, that's happening, seems to be happening. But ultimately, you can't really take it as serious anymore. It doesn't matter what happens. I don't want to say nothing matters, because of course there's an illusion that's playing out here. There's a relative world, and things matter, to you in the relative world, but you're not in control of that. I mean, here I have a responsibility to look after my wife and my children, and pay for the fucking unbelievably high amount of bills you have to pay in the UK, the taxes and all that, so, but there's no response. So there's no responsibility. You can't choose to do anything, yet it happens. So doing happens, but there's no doer. And there's definitely a relaxation in that, because even when there's times now where a worry or anxiety comes knocking, I mean, in the past I would grab that and hold it onto, and that's my anxiety, that's my worry. It's like, oh shit, what am I going to do about this? But now it's just like, there's no one choosing your thoughts, feelings, actions. There's no doer. So you can relax. What's going to happen is going to happen. This takes care of it all. This is running the show, not you. There's no one running the show. All them characters, world leaders, celebrities, there's no one doing anything. So there's nothing to know. There's nothing that you need to learn. But knowledge and learning happens, but you're not doing that either. You can't choose to pick up a book and learn about a certain knowledge, or choose to put the book down and say, sod it, I don't want to carry on learning that anymore. It's just what happens. So, I mean, I was going to say I don't know what I'm going to talk about in this video, but I've just been ranting on for 40 minutes. You see, the me character doesn't want this. So this immediacy that's here, which is the only existence, you actually don't want this, but deep down it's what you're searching for. It's a hell of a paradox. So what you're searching for is the end of the one who's searching. Because when you can see that this that's appearing right now is all there is, and there's nothing else, then it's impossible to seek anything else. There's no seeker here. And then you die. The me character dies in the face of this immediacy. Look at this immediacy. You cannot find any characters here. There's no me character here. There's no stories here. It's game over. Or the game's up. It's never game over, really, because in 5 minutes' time, in the imagined story, a thought will arise of the story and shit that you need to do, or shit that happened in the past, or blah blah blah. So, but it's that identification or belief in the me character and the story. Now it's a realization that it's just a thought, and I mean, if you want to believe that a thought is real, then that's just what's happening. But it's been seen here now that a thought is nothing. It's just an appearance that arises on this screen or this timeless immediacy. You know, whether that's a thought of something that's directly in this appearance, like looking at a chair. It's just a label. That's a label that's added on late. Everything you look at, the thought comes afterwards. You know, you look cup, phone, chair, it's always late. The thoughts are nothing. What's appearing is unknown. It's only known to you through the knowledge of labels and language. So, whether you're believing in a thought of something that's appearing in the present, or the past, or an imagined future, it's just a thought. What's been really interesting here is again, this is a story appearing now in this immediacy, but what's being noticed here now is there's a lot more focus on the body here and the nervous system. It feels more true to tap into the body and the nervous system rather than the imagined story. because it's been seen that the story's been seen through here now, but the nervous system and the body seems more real than the story. It's really hard to explain. I've tried to explain this in some of the other videos, but it does seem like conditioning of the past or trauma has a memory etched into the body nervous system. But there is no imaginary timeline. This is where it gets really fascinating here. You know, it's something I'm still trying to explore. You know, a thought might arise of something that happened when you were younger, and it might cause a tension in the nervous system in this timeless immediacy. But there's no separation. There's just this immediacy. So the thought of the past, which didn't happen in the past, it's just a movement of energy that appears now on this screen, can seem to cause a kind of contraction or a tensing up of the nervous system also in this immediacy. It's fascinating. But this that's appearing is always brand new. Always seen for the first time. So it's just whatever. So what's been seen really is that you don't need to know. This is the freedom. You don't have to work anything out. You don't need to understand. This doesn't need explaining. This appearance that's just here, this doesn't need to be explained. Who gives a shit? It doesn't matter what's happening. And I don't mean that in a nihilistic way. I mean it from an unconditional love, from a freedom, from a relief perspective. You know, who wants to know what this is? That's the freedom, the not knowing. And then there's a lightness to it. There's just an okayness with whatever arises. So the thoughts and the feelings, it's just whatever. You can't do anything about it. There isn't actually a problem. You know, if something's appearing or there's something that seems to be happening that you think is a problem or you want to be another way, well, that's the belief in the illusion. That's just the imagined me character believing in thoughts that arise, then attaching other thoughts onto them thoughts that arose in the first place. There's no thoughts here. What are them thoughts without language? That thought narrative that's going on for you. Let's say that thought narrative that's been going on for you in the last 7 days. Imagine if that was changed to a different language that you didn't know, like Chinese. Sorry if you are fluent in Chinese. But from here, there's an English narrative that's playing out. If I could flick a button somewhere and change the narrative to Chinese, and I don't understand it, how would life play out for you then? So it's just asking questions like that can sometimes help cut through the illusion a little bit. But no, once again, thank you for watching and listening to me rant on. Again, I don't know why these videos are happening. But it seems to be resonating with people out there, so thank you. Thank you for supporting the channel. It is appreciated. Thank you for all the kind comments and the unkind comments as well. Bring it on. It's okay. Doesn't matter. You know, there's no judgment here. It's understandable how so few people can see what's being shared here. So there's no judgment at all here. It's fully, why would people, it's really difficult with the conditioning in society for people to, why would anyone want to die to this immediacy? Maybe there are quite a lot of people who are suffering and they want to end that suffering. But as I mentioned earlier, just having a clear scene of this is not the end of suffering. Suffering is an appearance that arises in this immediacy. It's not up to you when suffering arises or not, or when uncomfortable thoughts arise or uncomfortable feelings appear. There's no permanent states of bliss. And that's what I mean. These gurus and sages of the past. I don't know. I've never met any of them and looked into the whites of their eyes and had a conversation with them. But from reading books and hours of research on YouTube, there seems to be this ethos or culture of eternal bliss, end of suffering. You hear this in spirituality. And how would that even be possible? Because the human body's nervous system just is as it is. There's no one inside your body. But to be fair, when an uncomfortable feeling or thoughts arise here now, they're not as powerful and they don't linger around for as long anymore. That's what's been noticed here. But again, that sounds like a doing, So that's me. I don't like teaching or giving advice because it's just what appears and then disappears, like everything. It's just the ordinariness of life. I would say this message is the end of seeking. The end of wanting it to be another way. It's more of it's okay, whatever appears, even if that is uncomfortable. But yeah, thanks for watching.